the corrupt globalist establishment that ruled our country for decades is now complaining that I'm doing exactly what I pledged to do in the campaign. All of these things, tariffs, the men and women's sports, everything. The borders, strong borders. We have the strongest border we've ever had today. It was just announced.
President Trump yesterday with the Republican National Congressional Committee. And it's true, the Democrats are absolutely flabbergasted, flummoxed. They don't understand. Wait a minute, you ran on this stuff and now you're doing it? That could screw up everything. We can't do that. Man, oh man. Well, a very good Wednesday to you and welcome back once again. We remain at 888-630-9625. The Democrats very angry about tariffs. Don't want to have trade wars, to make an effort at least to level the playing field on the global economic field of play. Because, they're not interested in making things better for the United States of America. The Democrat Party, they're not very democratic, are they? No, they're not. Not even close. A remarkable time to be an American, a remarkable time to be alive on planet Earth, and there is a battle underway, and it's a permanent battle, but the battle space has changed because the Democrat Party has become the third world. And they live among us, and they're trying to drag us down their rabbit hole with them, economically, culturally, scientifically. How many genders are there? Hand the keys over to communist China because they have 1 billion slaves. And how much money did they give to the Biden family, the communist Chinese? I got to say, the Democrat Party, we've seen him going crazier and crazier over the years. But today, we've never seen anything like it. They're whack-a-doodle-do. Today is Wednesday. That means it's hump day in the Clinton household, and Hillary has to get out of the house after she wakes up once again face down in a pool of her own dried vomit on their linoleum kitchen floor, one of their many multi-million-dollar mansions. And she knows she's got to be out because Bill is there, and it's hump day. So enough said on that. Also, that means here on the Chris Plant Show, very humbly, it is mailbag day, and Michael's going to make sure that I get to it today because sometimes the news starts breaking in the middle of the show, and I get distracted. I'll just say that it's me getting distracted. But we have mailbag day today, and I will get to the mailbag today because it's real good. Now, we've got a lot going on. Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of the entire Department of Defense, was in Panama, at the Panama Canal yesterday. And the Chinese are doing everything they can to take over the world. In fact, we were just talking to our Australian friend, Jason, who was talking about how the Chinese have taken over the port of Darwin in Australia, a key, very important port for the Australians and for the world, and the Chinese recognize that they want to take over everything. Australia is, of course, the only continent that's just one country. It's one country, one continent. It's Australia. Australians are great. They've been taken over by lefties that are not on their side either. And lefties are here to destroy the world, and they'll get into bed with communist China, whether they're Australian lefties or New York lefties. And, we've got all these billionaires that are such hacks that they're on the wrong side of history, as Barack Hussein Obama said so many times. We've got, we've got a lot of, we've got a lot of stuff. We've got so many wacky things going on. The Democrats, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, very, very angry because the Internal Revenue Service under DOJ is looking at illegal aliens with jobs. And hey, the IRS can help us identify illegal aliens. And the Democrat Hispanic Caucus, they want to stop that from happening. Boy, do they want that. They want to stop that from happening because The Democrat Congressional Hispanic Caucus, a race-based, a racially segregated congressional caucus, at least ethnically segregated, because the Democrats love segregation. They are the party of segregation. And like, hey, you can't, the federal government can't look at federal government files to see what the federal government is doing wrong. And the Democrat Party wants to make sure that we don't identify waste, fraud, and abuse, because the Democrat Party is the party of waste. The Democrat Party is the party of fraud. The Democrat Party is the party of abuse. And I'm not just talking about school children this time, although that is definitely one of their areas. So I want to get to Pete Hegseth. I want to get to President Trump again, who was busy yesterday with coal miners and with the National Republican Congressional Caucus. Big things going on. And there's another story that I want to share with you, because this is kind of a big deal. Yesterday I was talking about the poll, the survey that was done by an organization affiliated with the Rutgers University. And the poll, the survey found that a majority of Democrats, people that self-described as leaning left, so that's definitely the Democrats, anything leaning left is the Democrats, whether they're communist China in the United States or just your usual cross-dressing New York street prostitutes. They're Democrats. But the survey found that a majority of Democrats, 55%, are in favor of assassinating President Trump. And a near majority, I think it's 48%, in favor of assassinating Elon Musk, who they used to love, and now they're like jilted street hookers or something like that. Pretty amazing stuff. But they love, Congressman Steve Scalise was shot nearly killed by a Bernie Sanders campaign volunteer who wanted to kill every Republican on the baseball field because, and it was a suicide attack. That was one of their many suicide attacks. Amazing stuff. President Trump shot by a Democrat who had to be picked off by a Secret Service counter sniper because President Trump had been shot through the ear and only, luckily, because he turned his head to the right at the last moment. Otherwise, we'd be in a very different country right now. That's for sure. And on with the Democrat Party assassinating 3 Republican presidents in the past and shooting at many more Republican presidents. Only one Democrat president assassinated, and he was shot by a communist who may have worked for the CIA. It's hard to say. I'm kidding largely about the CIA, but never mind that. Now, Dan Bongino, and we know Dan Bongino here. Dan Bongino, I believe, started his radio career in this building on this floor, right down the hall in a radio studio where Larry O'Connor and I welcomed Dan Bongino into our midst, into our studios, and showed him what a cough button is and all that good stuff. And he learned the ropes on radio, the matters of radio, right here in this, my mothership station, WMAL in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, right? Now, Dan Bongino left his lucrative radio career and podcasting career to go work at the FBI as the deputy director, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And news broke yesterday afternoon after I left the radio station here in Washington to go down to my Newsmax show. FBI creates multi-agent bodyguard team to protect Dan Bongino, the former pro-Trump podcaster. This is NBC Fake News, a fake news organization, with their headline, "The former pro-Trump podcaster is the first deputy director to have a security detail. Full-time protection could require up to 20 agents," former officials said. When they say former officials, they're, of course, talking to their Democrat Party allies, many of whom they're sleeping with, and I do mean in a sexual way. And they got this left-wing radical, not a journalist at all, Ken Delanian, typing it up on behalf of the Democrat Party under the banner of NBC Fake News. The FBI has issued a call for agents to voluntarily serve as bodyguards for Deputy Director Dan Bongino, a break from past practice. You know, the number of people that are being shot by you guys and the fire bombings, also a break with past practice. And the reason for this, and NBC News doesn't put it in the lead because they're a backward bunch, and Ken Delanian is a famous Democrat Party bootlick and not a journalist at all, which is why he wins all the Lucite blocks that you might imagine. He's got lots of Lucite blocks because, the Democrats, they're a bloodthirsty bunch of ghouls. So it's a break past practice in which the Bureau's number 2 officials did not have security details to current and former FBI officials familiar with the matter told NBC News. And they're presumably anonymous because they're dating NBC News and NBC News is dating them. Bongino, a former Secret Service agent and New York City police officer who became a wealthy pro-Trump podcaster. You can feel it's just dripping with bitterness and resentment and envy, isn't it? Because Democrats harshly criticized the Bureau for years before President Donald Trump chose him to be deputy director. That's because he's been calling out a corrupted FBI that has been politicized by the Democrat Party and the left. But with that in mind, Bongino, the first deputy director in FBI history who's not a career agent, he is a former career Secret Service agent and NYPD officer, has pledged to act in a nonpartisan manner. This is pure politics, this fake news story. Just the Democrat Party. Now, here's the reason. Because of the death threats coming from the Democratic Party, the party of slavery and the Confederacy, the party that has assassinated 3 Republican presidents and shot at least 2 more, whereas only 1 Democrat president was shot, and he was shot by a communist. These are telling facts. So last week, a message sent to FBI agents known as a canvass asked for volunteers to leave their jobs temporarily to serve on a protective security detail for Bongino. Well, I wouldn't want to put any Ken Delanian FBI-loving FBI agents who have corruptly abused their power over the last how many years now? 10 years. I guess it's about 10 years now, with the beginning of the first Trump administration and then the Biden administration, all the abuses of the FBI and the Department of Justice under Merrick Garland, who should probably be in shackles somewhere, honestly, shackled to a wall with spiders crawling over him, like an old political cartoon. So the canvass sought agents willing to relocate for 30 days of temporary duty, TDY, to protect Bongino 24 hours a day. Well, it's not much good if there's another story about the would-be Brett Kavanaugh assassin yesterday, because Democrats, they have more assassins and more suicide attacks, and they're worse than Al-Qaeda at this point. And at some stage, we may have to identify the Democratic Party as a terrorist threat to the United States of America. I mean, honestly, suicide attacks against the police in Baton Rouge, in Dallas, mass murder, massacre there. The news media ignored it. Suicide attack against NYPD in New York City, against the U.S. Capitol Police in Washington. Suicide attack against Republican members of Congress at a baseball field in Alexandria. Suicide attack against President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. The Democrat Party is a threat to our democracy. They remember when President Trump, oh no, President Trump could win. It would be the end of our democracy. You guys have cornered the market on the end of our democracy. You're the left, all right? Man, oh man. So now they got to have as many as 20 full-time agents. This is another Democrat Party expense. Yes, sir. Means the detail would consist of rotating groups of agents who volunteer to leave their normal duties, creating the security detail. Appears to run counter to one of the FBI's Director Kash Patel's top priorities, transferring FBI agents from headquarters to the field. Well, listen, when Democrats are threatening to assassinate everybody and then proving that they mean it again and again with all the suicide attacks, you got to provide security to people that volunteer to serve as government officials. You could be making a lot more money and be, although the Democrats target you when you're doing conservative talk radio shows, too. But as FBI director, if the Democrats are threatening him, then I guess we ought to protect him. Call me old-fashioned. So the Democrats don't want safety for Dan Bongino, who at NBC News, they've always a conservative radio talk shows. Yeah, and Secret Service agent and New York Police Department officer, but never mind that. And the Democrat Party is a threat to everything and everyone. Just saying. You know that the all-new Eden Pure Thunderstorm air purifier has finally arrived. This new thunderstorm uses two technologies, and studies have shown these two technologies help to kill up to 99.9% of bacteria floating in the air in your home, in your office. Also, it takes care of dust and pet stuff floating in the air, and gets rid of any odor, too. No filters to replace again and again like a lot of air purifiers. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm will help get rid of any stinky smell, guaranteed. From litter boxes, trash cans, cigarette smoke, left-wing protesters, no match for the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. And right now, because, you and I are friends, you can save $200 on an Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack for a whole home protection. You can put one in your basement, your teenager's room, your kitchen, any place you like to breathe clean, fresh air. All you have to do is go to EdenPureDeals.com and use the discount code CHRIS3, CHRIS and the number 3 to save $200 American on 3 thunderstorms. Make one a gift. That's EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is CHRIS3. Yeah, so Dan Bongino now being threatened, of course. And you want to say, well, we got to secure our senior government employees who are being threatened, who are in danger, and the Democrats will angrily denounce you for that. I wonder why. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at WashingtonTimes.com/Chris. And I don't have enough time to do a phone call justice right now, so I'm going to hold off because we believe in justice. Yeah, NBC fake news, they've got this horrible hatchet job of a story by this complete fraud and charlatan, Ken Delanian, who's not a journalist at all. And NBC News hired one of these crooked former FBI agents named Frank Figliuzzi. Do you know this guy? Figliuzzi, an NBC News contributor, criticized Dan Bongino's decision not to simply carry a weapon, as past deputy directors have done. Frank Figliuzzi, who is a Trump-hating fanatic, an extremist, one of these deep state guys who belongs in Supermax. The guy's amazing. And NBC News quoting him. Wait till you hear what he had to say about Dan Bongino needing a security detail because of the dangerous left. Frank Figliuzzi said he's perfect for NBC News. I'll give them both that. All right, we got more coming on the economy and the madness that is the Democrat Party. Yeah, this guy, Frank Figliuzzi, NBC Fake News, describes former senior FBI official Frank Figliuzzi and reminded, in fact, Michael Pierce, I know this Figliuzzi guy. He's the biggest rectal aperture at the FBI. And NBC News says he's an NBC News contributor, meaning they pay him. Criticized Bongino's decision to not simply carry a weapon, as past deputy directors have done. Of course, he could carry. This is ridiculous, Figliuzzi said. It's a disgrace to his Italian heritage. The question is, what is the actual risk and threat here? Or does he just want a detail? This is taxpayer money we're talking about. Oh, it sounds like Figliuzzi wants to join Doge. Sounds like he wants to cut on waste, fraud, and abuse. Except he doesn't. He's just a left-wing bureaucrat, a hack. So, the FBI director, who typically has not been an agent, has usually been protected by a full security detail, and as has the attorney general. And so the people at NBC are doing a hatchet job on Dan Bongino here, and they got this Figliuzzi guy. Now, I went and did a little search on Figliuzzi, and he is famous for being a Trump-hating zealot. And that's why NBC hired him, because he's got a credential, he's got an old business card and a retired badge. And I guess he carries a gun and wants to pretend. So here it is, Dan Bongino, just go out and shoot it out on the streets, like Sheriff Bart here in Rock Ridge. You're responsible for your own security. And there's, a career Secret Service agent, NYPD guy. Maybe he could get certified to carry a gun. I think he's been certified to carry a gun for decades. I went and I found a story from 2023. Newsweek, fake magazine. Former FBI official, this is Frank Figliuzzi. Former FBI official issues ominous warning on Trump supporters' threats. Yeah, that's it. How many suicide attacks by Trump supporters on members of Congress? See James Hodgkinson of the Bernie Sanders campaign shooting Congressman Steve Scalise. Look at the suicide attacks by Democrats in New York, Washington, D.C., Dallas, and Baton Rouge, in Alexandria, Virginia, just to name a few. Suicide attacks by Democrats murdering people. Frank Figliuzzi, Newsweek, said, former FBI Assistant Director for Counterintelligence, well, he sounds counterintelligent to me, said that domestic threats in the United States now look like international terrorist threats, with people, quote, willing to die for a cause, end quote, who back former President Donald Trump. Is that right? But we haven't seen any of that, Frank Figliuzzi, but I just ticked off a small handful of the Democrat Party's violent, murderous suicide attacks. Pay no attention to the facts. This guy must have been a really crooked FBI agent. He doesn't know what facts are. He can't recognize fact patterns. He lies, and for political purposes, he lies. Trump has previously faced criticism for making alleged threats following his criminal indictments, and is currently facing 78 felony charges in total spread across 3 cases. That's the Democrats' Lawfare and Newsweek magazine and Figliuzzi. They're all about it. I got to tell you, these people, it reminds me of 1861 around here. The Democrats are at it again. Isn't that amazing? So the Trump supporters are the real threat, not the people shooting at Trump, not the people trying to get rocket launchers and Stinger missiles from Ukraine to assassinate Trump. Those aren't the problem. And you remember they had that transgender death cult that were just arrested recently. They murdered at least 4 people. Transgender death cult, political lunatics, the Democrat Party. But Dan Bongino has so many threats, he needs a security detail. And the media attacks Dan Bongino. Isn't that amazing? Well, perhaps not amazing, just the usual, All right, now let us see. Let us go to the telephones, Michael. We are at 888-630-9625. Let's go to Joe, calling from Fort Defiance, Virginia, which is one of the greatest names of a town anywhere in the country. Joseph from Fort Defiance, Virginia, you're on the Chris Plant Show. Joe from Fort Defiance. Hey, Joe. Come on, you call from Fort Defiance. You got to be hanging there on the line from Fort Defiance. Wants to talk about the Democrats and their plan for the nation. It's the plan, Fort Defiance. Joe, that was it. I was looking forward to this one, too. He was hanging in there for a long time. He was. All right, let's get back to the madness. Now, on the trade issues, the Secretary of the entire Department of Treasury is an intelligent person, a successful person in the business world, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Department. He was on the television this morning with Maria Bartiromo on the Fox Business Channel, talking about the China communists and the trade imbalance that exists in our trade relationship with communist China, with 1 billion people being used as slaves. In China, if they need your kidney, they'll line you up against a wall, shoot you, cut out your, they need it for a party leader. And they literally do this, by the way. And when they execute you, they execute a lot of people in China. And they have a history in communist China of executing people by firing squad. And it's really one person. They just shoot you one person because they're very thrifty with their ammunition. Never know when you might have to kill 100 million people. And the Chinese, they send a bill to the family of the inmate that they execute for the bullet. That's true. That's not a fake story. But here is Scott Bessent this morning with Maria Bartiromo talking about our trade relationship with communist China. And in fact, this went so well that even CNN is attacking the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent for what he said because they're mental. But here's the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who, by the way, the Democrats would say every time his name comes up, is the highest-ranking gay person ever to serve in government. If you don't count Barack Obama.
I think it's unfortunate that the Chinese actually don't want to come and negotiate because they are the worst offenders in the international trading system. They have the most imbalanced economy in the history of the modern world, and I can tell you that this escalation is a loser for them.
And they're picking a fight with the United States on trade. 84% tariffs on everything we send them. President Trump said 104% tariffs for everything we buy from China. Scott Bessent.
They are the surplus country. Their exports to the U.S. are 5 times our exports to China. So they can raise their tariffs, but so what?
But so what? See, I like that. That's guts. That's standing up for Team America, which is not something that Joe Biden ever did or the Democrats are in favor of doing because they really, really aren't on our side at all. Now, you may be familiar with Kevin O'Leary. Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, he's sometimes called, and he's got, Shark Tank is he's got a television enterprise investing in startup businesses and so on. Kevin O'Leary went on CNN where they were sure that he was going to take shots at President Trump and his plans for trade relations with communist China. Didn't work out very well for CNN, but here's Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, talking about President Trump. Again, President Trump imposing 104% tariffs on communist China. And granted, this is going to be for people in a lot of businesses. I saw an interview with a toy store owner yesterday on the television, and he said, well, more than 90% of what I sell comes from communist China, made by child labor with no protections and all that good stuff. And Mr. Wonderful on CNN, he was supposed to say, oh, this is so terrible, it's going to cause the Great Depression Part 2, which was driven largely by Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his disastrous economic policies to deliver us from evil after the stock market crash of 1929. But that's not important now. Here's Kevin O'Leary.
104% tariffs on China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China.
Not
enough. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it, and sell it back here.
They lie, they cheat, they steal. You know why? They're communists. I'm here to remind people of the lessons learned in the 20th century, where 1/4 the way nearly through the 21st century, China has stated out loud that they plan on, and I hear liberals in the United States say this too. Well, the 20th century was the American century because we saved the world over and over again through our hard work and sacrifice, and hundreds of thousands of Americans dying on the battlefield to smash the Socialist Workers' Party of Adolf Hitler, to hold the Soviet socialist utopianists at bay, to fight the spread of communism in Southeast Asia, which was being spread by the Soviet Union, by the way, the USSR, where Bernie Sanders went on his honeymoon with his adoring wife, who bankrupted that college in Vermont. How do you bankrupt a college? But, of course, the communist Chinese, they lie. Of course, they cheat. Of course, they steal. They're communists, and nobody kills like the communist Chinese. Nobody in the history of the world has ever killed the way that the communist Chinese have killed since the 1949 Maoist revolution in communist China. But Kevin O'Leary said 104%. Said, no, I want 400% tariffs on communist China. And it's not like this guy is a famous Trump supporter or a Republican or something. He's really not. But he's a businessman. And he says he does lots of business in China, too. Kevin O'Leary.
Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration, you may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric, finally, an administration that puts up and says enough.
Mean tweets, though, that, the Democrats, honestly, again, I shared with you the study yesterday where 55% of Democrats are in favor of assassinating President Trump. And that's a study that comes with the blessing of Rutgers University. And the Democrat Party is they love to say that President Trump is a threat to our democracy, which justifies in their own minds killing him. He's Hitler. He's, all the Nazis. They love these words. They don't know what they mean. But they're a dangerous bunch. Again, Kevin O'Leary on tariffs for communist China.
400% tariffs tomorrow morning. America is the #1 economy on earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
Oh, smash Chinese heads into the wall now. That's pretty good stuff. I like that. I've never heard him sound like this ever, and this guy's been around for years, but I've never heard him sound anything like this. Isn't that amazing? Let's grab a phone call, Michael. Let's go to Patrick, calling from the tiny state of Rhode Island. Patrick, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, how are you doing?
I'm great, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah, I was listening to you talk about Frank Figliuzzi.
Yeah.
He back in 2019, there was a couple of mass shootings, and Trump decided that they were going to fly the flag at half mast until August 8th. And he said that August 8th is the significant, that August 8th would be 8/8. And he said that was significant in neo-Nazi and white supremacy movement because the letter H is the 8th letter of the alphabet, and that 8/8 stands for Heil Hitler. I mean, you can't make it up.
You can't make it up. Honestly, Patrick, you don't have to make it up because these nut jobs are out there, and they give me hours and hours of madness every day to sift through and try to get back to the real world. But you're absolutely correct. In fact, Michael Piercy and I were talking about this. Michael said the same thing, this 8/8 Heil Hitler thing, which apparently was some motorcycle gangs. They'll do an 8/8 tattoo. And this Figliuzzi nutcase, he must have been born on 8/8 or something. Completely nuts.
Yeah. One other thing, actually, you probably don't remember me. I met you at the Army-Navy game last year while we were waiting in line to go through the magnetometer.
I do remember, and we talked, and my best girl had been stopped because she had binoculars.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And you were with your buddies, and I do remember talking to you outside when we were getting through security. And my best girl had to work the system because she wasn't being allowed into the Army-Navy game because of binoculars at the place where the Redskins play. They call it Northwest Stadium now. I do remember talking to you, and we were making fun of, a couple of different things, weren't we?
Right. Yeah, we were. Anyway, thanks for taking my call.
You were there with Navy buddies.
Yeah, we were. Myself and a classmate of mine from the Naval Academy were there.
Academy guys, see? Joe, great stuff. I'm saluting you, buddy.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, Figliuzzi. Where do we find such men? And is it too late to get rid of them?
The numbers 8-8 are very significant in neo-Nazi and white supremacy movement.
Yes, assassination culture, the study found. The Democrats wanted, they love Luigi Mangione. He assassinated a CEO of a healthcare insurer. The Democrats are good with that. They high approval rating. They want to date him. That's a euphemism. Let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Jeff calling from Herndon, Virginia. Jeffrey, you're on the Chris Plant Show. Jeff. Hey, what's going on? It's kind of funny out there today, isn't it? We got, must be the NSA. Let's go to Jeff. One last chance, Jeff? No, Jeff? All right, let's go to Jerry calling from the great state of Pennsylvania. That's the Keystone State. Jerry, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, love the show.
Thanks, Jerry.
One of the things I'm getting really frustrated about is I'm getting sick of a bunch of uneducated liberals calling me a fascist. Then you turn around and you ask them what it means, and they don't know.
Yeah.
We're talking about a regime that murdered 13 million people, slaughtered innocent POWs, American POWs, unarmed at Malmedy, and yet we're Nazis. They're taking away our rights. They're taking away this. They're taking away that. They can't tell you what we're taking away, but yet they'll still live under the strong arm of the Democratic Party, who turns around and takes rights away from people every single day. Now, please explain to me where that makes any sense.
Well, they also celebrate the snuffing out of more than 1 million babies' lives a year, and they harvest their organs, kind of like Dr. Mengele, Joseph Mengele did, and they love that. And these are the people, Jeff, that are excuse me, wrong one, Jerry, that are chasing Jews off of college campuses across America, the students and the faculty, threatening them and chanting the Hamas slogan, "From the river to the sea," which is as close as you get to Nazism in the modern world. And the Democrat Party, they are all about from the river to the sea, wiping Israel off the map, terrorizing Jews, calling them the terrorists when Hamas is a genocidal death cult drenched in the blood of innocents. And Jerry, my father actually killed Nazis when he was a young man. So they're wrong about everything all the time. And they just love to pick a fight that they could never win, of course, when it came down to it. The Democrat Party, like the socialist workers.